After a very slow May ending with a very weird main event between Macy Barber. Well, I guess I can't even say between because she didn't make the walk, but May ended with an abysmal Apex card. There weren't as many finishes as I predicted. There were a couple fun fights on that one, but ended May on a really, really low note. But good news is the first week in June, we have the first pay-per-view of the summer, starting out with UFC 316, Dvalishvili versus O'Malley 2. This is the somewhat highly anticipated rematch. I feel like fight fans are either on one side or the other. They're excited to see whether Sean O'Malley can come in here and negate more of the wrestling than last time with Merab. Obviously, it came out that Sean O'Malley was dealing with a torn labrum in his hip for his last few fights. Obviously not an ideal situation to have when you're going up against a very good wrestler. Can it be used as an excuse? I'm sure all day long it can be, but either way, the community is pretty split on this one. Some people are wondering why O'Malley got an immediate rematch after some believe that he got dominated in the first 5-rounder that they had at the Sphere last year. But either way, this is the fight we're getting, the rematch between Merab and O'Malley. Overall, the prelims are a little bit lackluster when it comes to names for a pay-per-view event. But we're going to go through the whole card and just break down the fights at face value. We're not going to give any predictions or anything till later in the week, but a decent card. The pay-per-view itself with the 5 fights is very stacked. But let's get down to it. So starting off the card, we got Markel Medeiros and Mark Choinsky. Mark is making his UFC debut coming from Sergio Pettis' fight promotion. He's 8-0. He looks like he is a menace when it comes to ground and pound. In his last fight that I watched, it looked like he was very, very comfortable in the wrestling scrimmage. His opponent went to shoot a takedown on him. He got, I believe it was an over-under, like one underhook, one overhook. Really, really smooth outside trip to reverse the takedown attempt. And then Markel Medeiros was supposed to fight last week, but is now being added to the UFC 316 card as a late addition, so he'll be kicking the card off. But this one will be pretty decent. I think Mark Choinsky is going to want to prove that he belongs in the UFC. And Markel is a tough first task, 10-1. Mark is 8-0. This should be a banger to start off the card, even though a lot of people are not going to know who Mark Choinsky is. Should be a pretty good starter. Following that is going to be Quillian Salakilid and Yanel Ajmus. John Anakin team are going to have their hands full with name pronunciations this week. There's a whole lot of... They're a mouthful, we'll say that. But this is going to be his second fight, I believe, in the UFC, or third. Yep, second fight. He ended his first fight very, very quickly and made quick work in his UFC debut. That is going to be... He looks to be very, very powerful for the lightweight division. Very quick, fast twitch. And then Yanel is in the same boat. He's new into the UFC. So we got the first 2 fights are going to be kind of some no-name newcomers. This is going to be his 4th fight in the UFC for Yanal. 2-1 rather. So not a whole lot to talk about with this one. I think stylistically it's a fun match. One thing that I will say about this fight is that the betting odds are wild. A -500 for the matchmakers in the, or for the odds makers in this is honestly crazy. You've got his second fight in the UFC. He's got 19 seconds in the UFC octagon. 19 seconds in the UFC octagon. He's at minus 500. That's like some shit we were seeing with Bo Nickel when he was first, before he got exposed, when he was on a little bit of a win streak there. Like, we were seeing this type of odds with an 8-0 record, or an 8-1 record. These odds are mind-blowing to me. Very disrespectful of Yanel. I think it's going to be a relatively close matchup. I don't think that we're going to see him get in there and make quick work of Yanel like he did Jabil. Moving on. Jusang Yu and Jekka Sargi. I'm going to be honest with you guys again. Like, I do not really know who these cats are. I believe this is his UFC debut as well. So hear me out. Very thankful that this card has the power that it has on the top end. But for a UFC pay-per-view, having two people making their UFC debuts on a pay-per-view, in my opinion, is just, it doesn't belong. Like, if you're stacking cards, if you're gonna give us a month like May where the capstone of those events was Bilal Muhammad and JDM, which, to Ariel Helwani's point, it did overperform. Not a lot of people thought that was going to be as a banger of a fight as it was. But that was not a stacked card. It was headlined by Bilal. And then the fight nights that we got in May were really, really lackluster. And so typically when we see that, you get the next card, it's top to bottom, like, not star power, but at least people that you know, at least people that are not making their UFC debuts. We've got 2 debutantes here in the first 3 fights. And for a pay-per-view, like, in my opinion, that's fucking insane. You should have people that are moving up in the rankings, people that are just outside the top 15, people that are in the top 15, vying for those title contender spots. Those are the people that should be filling the prelims on a UFC pay-per-view. Not Jusang Yu, who no one fucking knows who this is. Fight night. Put him on a fight night. Put these guys on a fight night. This guy's 1-2. And he's on a prelim of a pay-per-view? Come the fuck on. Like, the matchmaking in these 2 fights is wild. You're telling me you couldn't get Markel Maderos matched up against anybody else with any sort of notoriety? Same thing here. I mean, we've got... And what's crazy is that, again, this cat hasn't even stepped into the UFC octagon. First time. Minus 550. Minus 550. Sure, 1-2 in the UFC. Scrub. Needs a dub really bad or he's probably going to get cut. But still, you are disrespecting the experience of someone that has stepped in the UFC octagon under big pressure 3 times versus 0. I'm not saying that has everything to do with the outcome of a fight, but when you see odds like this, like, those are astronomical odds with someone that's making their UFC debut. I'd be curious to know what, like, Bo Nickel or who's like another up-and-comer that had a lot of heat behind him, like a Patty Pimblett. I'd be curious to see what the opening odds were for their UFC debut. I would be very hard-pressed to say that it's going to be more than a minus 550. Maybe even for Bo Nickel, who had a ton. He, out of every UFC prospect, has probably the most accolades coming in to the UFC. And I don't even think he was given odds like this in his first couple fights. Either way, the moral of this story is that if you want to put some parlays in right now, it's not a bad time to do so. Because you know, the odds are going to close, the margins are going to get smaller as the week progresses. But holy shit, I mean, we've got a plus 400, a plus 375, a plus 350. Like, there are some big underdogs on this prelim card. Huge. So if you feel confident in taking a couple of these underdogs, we'll talk about those fight predictions at the Thursday or Friday when we upload that video. But I've got some homework to do as far as watching some videos of prior fights on some of these fighters that I'm not very well versed on, to make an actual educated decision on how Saturday night's going to go. So I've got my work cut out for me to watch some of these fights, but odds makers have some crazy views of how these fights are going to go. Moving on, Ariana Da Silva and Wang Kong. I believe Wang Kong is in her first fight out of the Contender Series. No, she's in her fourth fight. So she's 2-1 in the UFC. And she was on the road to the UFC. That's right, they did do like the Chinese version of Road to the UFC this year. I think she's a product of that. Again, like not someone that I'm super familiar with. I need to do some homework before I put out my predictions video of how this fight will go down. But Ariana Da Silva is a little bit more established in the UFC. She's on a 2-fight skid. Her last win was against Casey O'Neill. But a whole lot more experience, way more of a skill gap, though, in my opinion. Wang Kong is honestly, I hate picking fights like this. We're seeing matchups like this, truthfully, but the flyweight division is just, outside of the rankings, there's just no good matchmaking. None. So we get through the first 4 fights of the night, who, in my opinion, for a UFC pay-per-view, the first 4 fights of the night are very, I want to keep using the word lackluster, but there's no notoriety in any of these names. We got 2 out of the 4 fights that I've gone through, people making their UFC debut. So, I don't know, it's just a little weird in my opinion that we had such a weird and, to be honest, kind of shitty May, and then this is how you start off the early prelims on a summer pay-per-view card. Here's where we start heating up, right? We got Chaos Williams, who is a bat out of hell when he gets in the octagon. He is always a very, very fun fight to watch. And then you got Andres Gustafsson, who he was supposed to fight last week or the week before as well. He was in the same boat as Markel, and now he's being added to this card. So very, very happy to see this matchup. I think this is going to be an exciting fight. Any fight that Chaos Williams is in is going to be fun. He comes forward. He looks very unathletic, almost like a deer in on a hardwood floor, or a baby giraffe that doesn't have its legs underneath him. When he really is forced to move, it doesn't look athletic at all. But he's so explosive and he's so in your face, and every punch that he throws is meant to KO you. It works. It works. It's almost like DDP. You watch DDP strike and you're like, how the fuck did he beat Israel Adesanya? How did he beat, and the list goes on, because it's just it's not good traditionally, right? Like, it's a very unorthodox way to approach striking. But for DDP, it works really well. Marches you down, high guard, overhands over your jab, like tough as nails. Same thing. DDP is not athletic. But Chaos Williams, you have to respect his power. You have to. And he's going to bring the pace early, and you're going to have to weather the storm. Most people don't weather the storm. Most people, they get touched and they fucking feel it. Like I said, Chaos Williams throws every punch with the sole intention to hurt you. I do not see this fight going outside the first round. Maybe if we're lucky, maybe if Gustafsson does a good job of moving laterally and staying away from Williams, we might see this go into the second round. But here's the interesting part about this. Chaos Williams, we have not seen him wrestle. We have not seen him take down. We have not seen really any sort of ground game from him. Whereas my Swedish friend here, he's a little bit more of a threat on the ground. He's got power in the hands and has the exact same threat on the feet that Chaos Williams does. However, I do think that the main factor in this fight is whether or not Andres uses his wrestling. We see it a lot where people almost seem to have a chip on their shoulder and say, oh, people think this guy can stand and bang, I'll show you. Almost like Bilal did. He was like, oh, people don't think I can strike, I'll show you. And then they completely disregard the strong attributes that they have. And Andres has good takedown accuracy and good control time. So it's going to be very interesting to see whether Chaos puts him on his back foot and forces him to shoot takedowns, or if he comes out with a game plan to back Chaos Williams up, maybe get against the fence, get in the clinch, dirty boxing, takedowns there, inside, outside trips from like over-unders. I could see this fight playing out in a lot of different ways, but it's ultimately going to come down to the game plan of Andres Gustafsson, whether or not he implements his wrestling, how early he implements it. Is he going to get hurt first? Is he going to get tagged and then start shooting takedowns? That's going to be the main factor. If he uses his wrestling and how early on he does. But moving on, another pretty fun fight in my opinion. We got Waldo Cortez Acosta and Sergey Spivak. Sergey Spivak has had a little bit of an inconsistent last couple years, and he's kind of a boring fighter. I'm not gonna lie. He's not my all-time favorite heavyweight to watch. He does a lot of, when he takes you down, if you are 233 fucking pounds, you better be raining down ground and pound. But he doesn't. He's one of those guys that he is content in getting a takedown, sitting in top half guard, chest to chest, and just holding control time. Not much of a submission threat. He has submissions, but I don't think he's going to be getting a submission on Waldo Cortez. Waldo, if I'm not mistaken, used to be like an MLB pitcher. I'm 99% sure he used to play in the MLB. And you see it, like when he throws his overhand rights, it's almost like he's throwing a pitch, like it comes from up here. A lot of his punches are unorthodox, to say the least. But Waldo, he comes forward with heavy pressure, and Sergey is going to shoot. Waldo is like, he's gonna put Spivak on his back foot. That's a no-brainer. It's going to happen. But is Sergey going to be able to keep Acosta on the ground? I want to say we've seen Acosta get up from being taken down. Like, I want to say he kind of embodies that Derek Lewis just get up defense. But that's, again, very, very similar to the Chaos Williams fight. A lot of how this fight plays out is going to be where this fight takes place. I see this going up against the cage a little bit more. I could 100% see that. Waldo may be able to work in the clinch a little bit more effectively if he's the one on the outside putting pressure into the fence. But Sergey's got good wrestling, and I don't know if Waldo is going to want to get in that distance to have to even deal with it. So it's an intriguing matchup. Sergey is really boring. Waldo is not boring. Waldo comes in to knock you out or get knocked out. So someone's getting finished in this fight, I believe. I just won't make the call quite yet. Again, another just insane odds. Not that this one's like super duper crazy, because we got an undefeated 14-0 Azamat Mirzakhanov. And just look at this cat. Beat Alonzo Menafield, beat Dustin Jacoby, beat Devin Clark, beat Injiguani. So like he's beat some pretty decent light heavyweights. Not saying that the light heavyweight division is like super stacked in general, but like he's beat some pretty game opponents. Here's the deal. He's working with a 4-inch height disadvantage and a 10-inch reach disadvantage. That is a lot to overcome. Not saying that you can't overcome it. Not saying that you can't, but that's a really difficult reach advantage to overcome. And that just goes to show you what people think of Azamat's skill. He's at a 10-inch reach disadvantage, and he's a minus 600 on the odds. That's fucking insane. Actually, your classic southpaw versus orthodox, Azamat is going to be brutalizing Brendanson with those rear leg kicks to the body. But that's going to be the range that he's probably going to work in a little bit, especially earlier on in round 1, round 2. We're probably not going to see a whole lot of Azamat letting his hands go unless he's shooting behind them, unless he's setting up takedowns. I think he's going to be in that kicking range for a lot of the first round, maybe even into the second round, until he feels comfortable kind of picking his shots and mitigating that range. So I could see this being a pretty boring first fight, or first round, potentially even like a pretty boring second round. So it's going to take Azamat a little bit to figure out how he's going to approach this reach disadvantage. But I do think we're going to see initially a lot of front low kicks and rear body kicks from Azamat, especially coming out in that southpaw. We see it all the time. People, especially that are at a disadvantage with the reach, they rely very heavily on those kicks to act as their jabs and to act as their feeling out for their range. And then it provides them a safer route to try and inflict damage on their opponent without getting into a dangerous range, into the punching range. So this is a really intriguing matchup again. So right in line, as soon as we get past the early prelims, we've got some really fun matchups. Moving on, Joshua Van and Bruno Silva. Bruno Silva is, in my opinion, kind of getting sacrificed to Joshua Van in this one. Again, another minus 600 plus 400. Guys, the parlay that you could hit could provide generational wealth for your family if you take the underdogs on this fucking card. Which is, we've seen crazy stuff happen, like Juliana Pena beating Amanda Nunes. What was the fight odds on that? I want to say Juliana Pena was like plus 1,000. Not saying that this is the same scenario, but I mean, we've got multiple plus 400s, plus 375s, plus 300s, plus, like, this card is a money-making machine if you pick your cards right, which hopefully I can help you do on Thursday or Friday when I drop my official predictions. Like I said, I have a lot of homework to do and watch some fights before I make those predictions, but Joshua Van has been on a tear recently. He's one of the more promising flyweight contenders. He's very, very young. He's only 23 years old. I want to say he's on a 3-fight streak. So he's feeling good, and he is very, very powerful for the flyweight division, moves really well, and is like very, very well-rounded. I think he's going to be one of the next title contenders within the next couple years. I don't think that Bruno Silva is going to have much of an answer for Joshua Van on the feet. If he does, Joshua Van is incredibly good at the takedown. Right, like when he's in, we've seen it a few times where he engages in these foam booth range type style fights and makes him a little dirty, and when he gets in that close, picks his shots, boom, 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 hits a double leg, takes his opponent down, slows the pace of the fight, controls it, starts working passes, starts working damage. He's not one of those guys that does the body head. Thank Christ. We do not need another one of those in the UFC. But I do think that Joshua Van is going to make some pretty easy work of Bruno Silva in this one. Not trying to disrespect Bruno Silva in any capacity, but I'm not really thinking that he's going to have as crisp of striking as Joshua Van. Joshua Van's boxing is very crisp. Very crisp. This fight's probably going to go to the mat at some point. Like I said, Joshua Van has the capability of getting those quick takedowns in those really chaotic exchanges. And Bruno Silva is, more of a jiu-jitsu guy, but he's also got some decent striking and power. Could be a fun match, but again, I do think that Joshua Van is going to make easy work of this matchup. But again, crazy odds on this card. Crazy odds. Moving on, Kevin Holland and Vicente Luque. This is like a battle of who shows up, right? Vicente Luque and Kevin Holland have both shown some really great spurts of skill and have beat some game opponents, but then they've dropped fights that they probably should have won, both of them. Kevin Holland has seemingly been a bit more serious in his last few fights. He's not being that big mouth, talking all sorts of shit during the fights. To be fair, his last few, in the fights that he was talking a lot, they were against opponents that, maybe they weren't as dangerous, but here as of lately, he's been struggling, really struggling. 2-4 in his last 6. To be fair, he has taken a couple short notice fights. And he's faced some incredibly tough opponents. Jack Della Maddalena, who's the champion now. Michael Page, who came in and has given everyone that he's fought a tough go. Just recently lost to Machado Gary. Oleg Jacek, another very game opponent. Roman Dolidze is kind of wishy-washy. Renier de Ritter just exposed Bo Nickel. Gunnar Nelson, he got his mojo back. But the point I'm trying to make here is Kevin Holland has always been the type of guy that says yes to any fight, and he's taken some really, really tough fights. He took that fight against Hamzat, Took that fight against Hamzat on super short notice. So he's always game, and he's always a fun fighter. He's got that kung fu type of style. And his jiu-jitsu is just really scrambly. He's very lengthy, so he has the ability to get underhooks a little easier, I feel like. His butterfly hooks and has a really good stand-up ability once he's on the ground if he wants to. But we have also seen when he doesn't show up, we've seen him just accept the position and lay on his back and just hold people in his guard. No getting feet in the hips and trying to make distance to get up, nothing. Same goes for Vicente Luque. Vicente Luque isn't as, I would say, inconsistent as Kevin Holland, but both of these guys, it really just depends what version of them shows up that night. So, this is a fun fight. It's going to be a lot closer than I think people think. Vicente Luque is in my opinion, a little bit of an underrated vet. But I think he's going to give Kevin Holland some issues to deal with. Kevin Holland's going to be sporting a 5.5-inch reach advantage, which is going to be very helpful when dealing with Vicente Luque and trying to keep him away from your hips and taking you down and potentially submitting you. But I like the matchmaking on this one. It really just depends on what version of Vicente Luque and what version of Holland walk in that octagon on Saturday night, because both are just a little wishy-washy. When they look good, man, they look good. But when they look bad, shit, they look bad. So, honestly, the main event is very intriguing, but a lot of people, I think, are looking forward to this fight. I am, at least. Bautista's coming off of that victory over Jose Aldo that a lot of people are trashing him on, which ultimately was, a good win for him. And he's welcoming the former Bellator bantamweight champ, Patchy Mix, who's a scary fucking dude. Very good jiu-jitsu, very good. His striking is on par with what you need to at least stay competitive in the UFC. He's fought some pretty tough opponents over in Bellator, and he's getting a hell of a test in Mario Bautista. I love this matchmaking, truthfully, I do. Bautista, I want to say, is like 13 or 14, right? So he's 10. So that's like right on par. I like that. The UFC didn't bring in Patchy and give him a fucking Song Yadong or a Davison Figueiredo or a Piotr Jan. I know that some of those guys already have fights booked, but I'm just saying, hypothetically, I'm glad that the UFC didn't bring him in and kind of cut the line and give him a top 5 opponent. I think that would have been a mistake. So I think this is a good test to see if he belongs. We saw Patricio Pitbull. He came in a very similar situation and got exposed. Are we going to see the same thing happen with Patchy Mix? I don't think so. I think Patchy Mix he's obviously a lot younger, and I think he's a lot more skilled than Patricio. Again, his jiu-jitsu is some of the best that you'll see in MMA. I think we're going to see Mario have to defend some really tough positions. We might even see Mario end up in a couple submission threats. But Mario's got good defense. Like, we've seen him get taken down against good submission artists and get out of trouble. He's at the MMA lab, so like you can guarantee he's getting some really good looks in the grappling department when it comes to his training partners. So I think we're going to see Patchy get to show how good his jiu-jitsu is. I think he's going to put Mario in some bad spots. But if Mario can keep this on the feet, the longer the better. I think Mario has more diverse arsenal with his striking. He mixes things up really well. He's fun to watch. And is very dynamic in his striking. So I think if he can keep things on the feet, the longer he can, the better for him. As soon as this fight goes to the ground, I'm going to be holding my breath for Mario. I think Patchy is the most dangerous when he's on top of you on the ground, especially early on when you're dry. But could not get better matchmaking, in my opinion, for this fight. I'm very, very excited for it. Moving on. Another just does this KG. Another who shows up and who like, are we going to get the version of KG that can't stop eating his tacos and looks like he just rolled out of bed? Or are we going to get the KG that came in and gave Izzy the toughest fight of his career? Arguably, I would say. Like, that was a grinder of a fight. I know he got knocked out against Izzy and Nasruddin, but like, KG took him to his depths, right? Like, that's where that famous clip of Izzy saying, like, I'm prepared to die. Like, that's against KG. And then we get KG coming out and looking like a fucking scrub against people that couldn't hold a torch to Izzy. So, Kelvin, a lot of this comes down to what version of KG shows up. Has he been training? Has he been taking this fight seriously? And then on the other side of the coin, you got Joe Pyfer, who was riding a big wave. I think he was on like a 3 or 4 fight win streak until he lost his last fight. or the fight before. So yeah, he was on like a good streak and was knocking people out and was looking like he was going to be the next guy at middleweight. And then he ran into the Joker, and he got exposed a little bit. Couple areas of his game got exposed. His ground game and his ability to not deal with being held down was exposed. So we've seen KG get good takedowns. KG can take you down. This is going to be another southpaw orthodox, so the takedowns are going to be there because both of these guys are going to be throwing rear leg kicks to the body, rear leg kicks to the head. So KG, I think if he's going to win this fight, he really needs to get it down to the ground. I think if anyone's going to get knocked out in this fight, it's probably going to be Joe Pyfer. Kevin Gastelum has one of the craziest chins in the UFC. It's fucking wild. And we really haven't seen Joe Pyfer get like super tested on his chin. I think Gastelum is gonna test him. Gastelum is always, for the most part at middleweight, the shorter guy. So I would say that the 4-inch reach disadvantage for KG isn't as big of a situation to deal with as some other people because he's used to it. It's almost like Michael Chandler. Like Michael Chandler or DJ. Like those short guys are used to fighting at a reach disadvantage and a height disadvantage. They make their game plan surround their ability to mitigate that. So this one really depends on what version of KG shows up. If the good one, the one that stepped in there to challenge Israel Adesanya, shows up, then I think this fight is going to be a bloodbath. I think we're going to see both of these guys get rocked multiple times. But if not, I could potentially see a TKO. I don't think we're going to see him get knocked out. But another fun matchmaking. Like again, this main card has nothing but bangers. It just sucks that the first 2 hours of the early prelims are going to be really. I can't say they're going to be slow because they could put on some really fun fights, but the name value's not there. I mean, 99%. I watch this sport every fucking weekend, and I have a YouTube channel where I'm involved with this shit nonstop. I'm always thinking about it, and I don't really know who some of these cats are on UFC 316, and that probably, like, if I don't know, 99% of the fan base doesn't know. And in my opinion, on a UFC pay-per-view card, there shouldn't be any no-names. That may be a casual take, which I'm not a casual, obviously. But especially after the May we had, you were sandbagging those fucking cards. And then you have two fucking UFC debuts and some other no-namers to kick it off. Either way, I rest my case. I have to stop ranting. Let's get on with it. Juliana Pena and Kayla Harrison. I'll just go ahead. I'm not putting out any predictions until Thursday or Friday, but I am so confident in this. Kayla Harrison is going to fucking maul Juliana Pena. Juliana Pena, her striking looks disgusting, but it's nowhere near as effective as DDP's, like we were just talking about. Juliana Pena has some of the most atrocious striking, but her pressure is gnarly. So it equals out. She doesn't have to be as technical because she gets in your face and makes things ugly. Here's where that becomes a problem with Kayla Harrison. Kayla Harrison is a judo Olympian, okay? If you put pressure on her like that, you're going to get fucking thrown into the rafters. Juliana Pena, mark my words right now, the first time that Juliana Pena tries to close the distance and tries to overwhelm Kayla, because I could see that happening. Kayla's striking isn't necessarily high level, but it's good enough to compete with Juliana Pena. But the first time we see Juliana Pena threaten some damage or get in too close and come into that grappling range where Kayla can grab you, we are going to see Juliana Pena get absolutely fucking yeeted by Kayla Harrison. I could see like a Uchimata, a hip toss. Like, she's going to use that momentum of Pena against her using her judo. And then I do not think that Juliana Pena is really going to be able to do much to get out of bottom control once Kayla Harrison is on top. I think Kayla Harrison has enough control on the top to keep her there if she wants to. But this is one of those fights where I really hope that we don't see a fighter just completely disregard where their strong suits lie to prove a point. I hope that Kayla Harrison doesn't want to go out there and knock Juliana out. I hope she wants to throw Juliana across the octagon and beat the tar out of her through like ground strikes. I don't think she needs to stay on the feet too long with Kayla or with Juliana. But I will only make one prediction in this video, and it is that Kayla Harrison is going to make easy work of Juliana Pena. And that's coming from someone that made like multiple grands on Juliana Pena upsetting Amanda Nunes. I hammered that underdog. Like a $25 parlay. I parlayed her with one other bet. One leg. It was a 2-leg parlay. And she damn near paid my mortgage for a couple months. So, all that being said, I still think Kayla Harrison is going to demolish her and make it look easy. Kayla Harrison is most likely going to be a very dominant bantamweight champion. We could see her defend a couple times and then move up a division to the 145 and just start smoking fools there, just like Amanda Nunes did. But easy work for Kayla Harrison. Moving on, the main event, Sean O'Malley and Merab Dvalishvili. I will be the first to admit that I am definitely I've been a Sugar Sean fan since his Dana White Contender Series fight. When I first started getting into the UFC, I found him and Tim Welch's podcast very early on, probably 4 or 5 years ago at this point. And so I am going to admit right out front that I will probably always hold some sort of bias when I see Sean fight, because you can be a fan of someone and still have biases, but you can still take a step back and objectively go, okay, even outside of my personal biases, this guy is fucking good. And I still feel like that's true, like with Sean O'Malley. If I can take all my biases out of this, he is the most dynamic striker in the UFC, or at least top 3. Right? We still have not seen his jiu-jitsu. His last fight against Merab was the first time that he's been taken down and held down. And we didn't see him really use his jiu-jitsu. We've seen him use some scrambling against like Peter Yan. We've seen some scrambling against Merab that he had spurts of. We haven't seen his jiu-jitsu. So I get where people are coming from. I do. And Merab is dominant. I think he's on a 14-fight win streak. People are throwing up GOAT status at this point, which is another discussion for another day. Throwing that around like it's fucking candy. But either way, this matchup is very intriguing because a few things have changed since they fought last. Obviously, 6 months, 8 months have gone by. That being the biggest factor, time. They've both had time to go back to the drawing board, and I'm sure they knew that this was going to happen. So they've probably been preparing for this since the first fight, at least mentally, game planning. And then Sean O'Malley quits smoking, quits social media, quits gooning, and has hip surgery. So he makes some like pretty drastic changes to his lifestyle and seems to be a little bit more dialed in mentally. I think he was really riding the high of knocking Aljo out and the win streak he was on before then, and he was on a rocket ship. The UFC was trying to build a superstar, and he was riding that. I'm sure that mentally gets to you, and as much as you want to stay disciplined, and I'm sure he was disciplined, I'm sure that much attention is not good for the task at hand, regardless. So he took all that noise out, which is props to him. I'm sure there's still going to be haters that are going to talk shit about it, but he clearly saw that was something that needed to happen after that last fight, right? So a couple interesting changes that O'Malley has made during this camp. And Merab, he's going to be the same motherfucker that he has been on his last 14 fight win streak. It's no secret at this point. That's what's really, really impressive about Merab, is everyone knows how to beat Merab, but no one can do it. Everyone knows all you have to do is stifle his wrestling. If you can keep him on the feet, he's not that big of a threat. Everyone knows at this point that the wrestling is what you have to get contained. And no one can do it. That speaks to how good he is and how good he is at winning. He's boring as shit. He's not going to knock anyone out. He's not going to submit anybody. He's a decision machine. But his wrestling and his cardio are something that 99% of people just cannot deal with. Good wrestling you can deal with. Good wrestling and cardio, way harder to deal with. On the flip side, good cardio, you can deal with someone that's got good cardio. You can take them to places that they're not comfortable, take them to the ground, keep them on the feet if they want to go to the ground, right? But then you mix in wrestling and cardio, and it's a whole different animal. So the biggest factor, everyone knows it, is going to be, did Sean O'Malley do enough wrestling improvement outside of that fight and in this camp leading up to this rematch to make any sort of difference in how this fight goes? Because if he didn't, this fight is going to be a carbon copy of the first match, where it's just 5 round, just kind of Merab doing what he normally does. But if Sean O'Malley worked on his wrestling, I believe the first time that they fought, Merab took him down 6 or 7 times. He shot like 15 times, so he defended roughly 50% of the takedowns with a torn labrum. Will he be able to stifle more takedowns now that he's fully healthy and could grapple in his fight camp? We will see. But I think the biggest thing that is going to, because Merab is going to take him down. Merab has taken down Henry Cejudo. He's taken down Umar Nurmagomedov, both of which we all know have better wrestling than Sean O'Malley, right? But is Sean O'Malley just going to accept the position like he did last time and slowly work to his feet? Or is he going to work his jiu-jitsu? Is he going to try and break Merab's posture down? Is he going to try and have an active guard off his back? Is he going to try and get feet in the hips to kick off to create space so he can get a technical stand-up and get things back on the feet? Those are all things that we know O'Malley has the ability to do. He just didn't do it in the first fight. So overall, this card is stacked on the pay-per-view and the prelims. But the early prelims, the first 4 fights of the night, not a whole lot of notoriety there. I hope that they produce and that they're fun fights to start the card off, but I still think that, especially for as lame's a strong word, but for as not as exciting of a May as we had, you would expect the first pay-per-view of the summer, which summer pay-per-views are known for bringing the heat. You have International Fight Week. You usually have an Abu Dhabi card that's fire. You usually have a big card like this to kick things off in June. And you shouldn't have people that are making their UFC debuts on the early prelims and prelims. You should have what the prelims have all the way down to the early prelims. People that are moving up in their division. Save these no names and debuts for the earlies on a fight night, and you can still stack fight nights. But overall, I know I ranted a little bit about that last thing a bit in this video, but overall, it's a very good card, and it's headlined by 2 very fun matchups. So we'll drop the predictions video on Thursday and or Friday, so be on the lookout for that. But We got a good weekend of scraps coming up. I'm excited. Let me know your thoughts on the card below, and we'll catch you in the next one. Peace.